in the heart of the Fenlands, where the mists clung low to the earth and the waterways whispered secrets of a land unconquered, Hereward the Wake stood as a beacon of defiance. The year was 1070, and the Saxon hero, with his band of rugged outlaws, waged a relentless war against the iron grip of William the Conqueror. His men were hungry, their blades dulled from battle, yet their spirits burned with the fire of resistance. Hereward, tall and broad-shouldered, with eyes that gleamed like polished flint, was no mere warrior. He was a legend, a man whose name stirred both fear and hope in the hearts of those who whispered it. The Abbey of Peterborough, a sanctuary of stone and sanctity, had long been a haven for Hereward's cause. Its Saxon abbot, a man of quiet resolve, had turned a blind eye to the rebels' raids, offering silent prayers for their success against the Norman yoke. But William, ever cunning, saw through this alliance of sympathy. He ousted the Saxon abbot and installed Hereward, a Norman prelate with a hawkish gaze and a heart loyal to the conqueror's crown. Hereward arrived at Peterborough with no illusions about Hereward's reverence for the church. "This outlaw respects no sacred ground," he declared, his voice sharp as a blade. He demanded a guard of 150 knights, their armor glinting like a warning to any who dared challenge his authority. But Hereward was no man to be cowed by knights or cloisters. One stormy night, as thunder growled over the fens, he led his men in a daring raid. They swept into Peterborough like a tide, their boots churning the mud of the town's streets. The abbey's golden treasures, chalices, crosses, and coins, stamped with the faces of forgotten kings, fell into their hands. The townsfolk fled or cowered, and Hereward, caught in the chaos, was bound and dragged before Hereward. The abbot's face was pale, but his eyes burned with defiance. "You defile God's house," he spat. Hereward, his expression unreadable, only gestured for the treasure to be loaded onto carts. "God's house will stand," he said softly, "but my men will not starve." The raid was a triumph, a blow struck against Norman pride. Yet that night, as Hereward sat by a fire in his camp, the air grew heavy with an otherworldly presence. The flames flickered, casting shadows that danced like spectres on the tent walls. He closed his eyes, seeking rest, but a vision pierced the darkness of his mind. Before him stood St. Peter, robed in radiant white, his face stern yet radiant with divine authority. In his hand he held a golden key so vast it seemed to unlock the gates of heaven itself. His voice, deep and resonant, shook Hereward to his core. "Return what you have taken," the saint commanded, "for this abbey is mine, and I will not see it despoiled. Free the abbot, and let my treasure shine again in my house." Hereward awoke, his heart pounding, the vision seared into his soul. His men, gathered around the fire, saw the change in their leader's face. "What ails you, Hereward?" asked Leofric, his most trusted companion, a grizzled warrior with a scar that twisted like a river across his cheek. Hereward's voice was low, almost reverent. "St. Peter himself has spoken. We return the treasure. We free." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the camp, but none dared defy Hereward's resolve. By dawn, the carts rolled back to Peterborough, and Hereward, bewildered and humbled, was released. The abbey's treasures were restored, gleaming once more in the candlelit sanctuary. Hereward never raised a hand against the abbey again, and whispers of his vision spread, weaving a new thread into his legend. Days later, Hereward's rebellion pressed on. His target now was Stamford, a Norman stronghold ripe for the taking. He led his men through the tangled depths of Rockingham Forest. a labyrinth of ancient oaks and shadowed paths where even the boldest could lose their way. The forest seemed to pulse with a life of its own, its branches clawing at the sky, its air thick with the scent of moss and decay. As the day waned, a fog rolled in, dense and disorienting. The men stumbled, their bearings lost, their courage fraying. "We're cursed," muttered one, clutching his sword as if it could ward off the forest's malice. Even Hereward, whose instincts were as sharp as a hawk's, felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Night fell, and with it came despair. The men huddled together, their breaths visible in the chill air, their whispers tinged with fear. Then, from the darkness, a low growl broke the silence. Eyes glinted in the shadows, and a wolf, its fur silvered by moonlight, stepped into view. It stood tall, unafraid, its gaze fixed on Hereward. The men reached for their weapons, but Hereward raised a hand. "Hold," he said, his voice steady. The wolf turned and padded into the fog, pausing as if beckoning them to follow. Against all reason, Hereward obeyed, and his men, trusting their leader, trailed behind. As they followed the wolf, a miracle unfolded. Tiny flames, bright as stars, flickered to life on the branches of every tree. They burned steadily, untouched by the wind that howled through the forest. More astonishing still, each man's shield began to glow with its own candle-like flame, casting a warm light that banished the fog's oppressive gloom. The men gasped, their fear giving way to awe. "St. Peter," Leofric whispered, his voice trembling with reverence. "He guides us still." The wolf led them onward, the candles lighting their path, until the forest parted to reveal the open fields before Stamford. The wolf vanished into the night, and the flames faded, leaving only the memory of their divine glow. Hereward stood at the edge of the forest, his heart swelling with gratitude. He knew the apostle had repaid his obedience with this miracle, a sign that their cause was not forsaken. The attack on Stamford would come, and with it, another chapter in his rebellion. But as he gazed at his men, their faces alight with renewed purpose, Hereward felt the weight of something greater than victory. St. Peter's candles had burned not just to guide their steps, but to kindle a fire in their souls, a fire that would burn as long as the Fenland hero defied the conqueror's crown. Many thanks for treading this tale's dark path. If its chill gripped you, like, follow, subscribe, and comment below.